Good morning, my name is Mike McKay from Liam's Luck Woodcraft. Welcome to the 102nd Annual Pennsylvania Farm Show. We've been here for several years. We really enjoy being here. We carve wooden spoons and spurtles and other kitchenware out of native Pennsylvania hardwoods. I have a piece of black walnut in my hand. I'm going to start working on that. We're going to start by splitting it using a froe. This froe is a splitting wedge that's horizontal. This one was made by one of our blacksmiths here. This is now what is called a billet. It's been a dimensional piece of wood. You start with a log and you split it into dimensional pieces, so this is called a billet. We paint the ends so it dries a little bit more evenly, if you're wondering why there's paint on it. This was harvested when somebody was clearing some ground nearby, and they were just going to throw it away. A lot of walnut and other woods get thrown away, so we are reclaiming wood from other clean waste sources. We do a lot of things out of wood that is coming from sawmills in their scrap pile. I'm using what is known as a hewing hatchet. Hewing hatchet has a profile and flat on one side and profiled on the other. This one is about 100 years old. Most of our tools are old, as they work wonderful. And right now I'm just trimming it back. Okay, I have a rough shape right now. I know it doesn't seem like much, but now I'm going to start hewing. Hewing is several processes go on here. This is called scoring. Now I'm going to shave it off, and the shaving is actually what is known as hewing. But they call hewing the whole process. So, and all I'm doing is getting it down a little bit thinner and a little more uniform, so that when I go to the bench, it will be a little bit easier to work. So now I have a rough shape to work with. This is called a shaving bench. It's also known as a schnitzelbank. If you push with this, it clamps whatever is in there. This is called a draw knife. A draw knife has two handles. It's held horizontally, and it's very sharp, and it's very good for rough carving, rough shaving. Right now I'm profiling the shape on this, so I'm getting the shape down a little bit more, a little closer to being done. I had to switch direction here because the grain was starting to run on me. You see me wrapping it with a piece of leather. The leather provides two functions. One, it adds friction so it doesn't slip out of the jaw, and it also pads the piece so that the jaw doesn't make crush marks in the wood. you see, as I'm using the draw knife, I'm holding it often at a diagonal and I'm sliding it. And the sliding is taking advantage of the fact that it's actually a knife. And so by moving it in a slicing motion, you're slicing your way through the wood and taking advantage of the knife edge. If you're just pushing and pulling with it, you're fighting it. The tool I'm using now is called a spoke shave. This tool has a knife blade on the undersurface, and then it's got a wooden body. You'll often see these made out of steel. I prefer them in the wood. This is about 140 years old, and it just works so much better than the metal ones do, and it's about 1/3 of the weight. These were originally designed to shave the wooden wagon wheel spokes and make them smooth. That's where it gets its name, the spoke shave. It works well as a finished carving tool. Yep, one more cut. And this is how we make a spurtle. Spurtle's an old Scottish word. It means mixing stick. And you often don't need the bowl on a spoon because most of the cooking we do is stirring. It's not scooping. Spoons are actually intended to serve with. If a spoon is standing in a boiling pot too long, it'll cause the end of it to split out. But a spurtle won't do that. And it's because when you carve the bowl of a spoon, you relieve the wood by carving the bowl out. Now that you've interrupted the grain, and what's left is a short bit of grain, which doesn't stand up well to boiling water. So spoons are great for serving with, but stirring and stirring and stirring, they eventually crack on the ends. So for that, we encourage you to use a mixing stick. So you can see this one needs a little bit more work and some sanding, but you see this is what a spurtle is, okay? Now, to make a spoon, you can do it with gouges, or you can use what's known as a hook knife. It's got a hook shape to it, okay? And it is designed to scoop the wood out using a hook motion. And this is not soft wood, it's just a very sharp tool. This is Pennsylvania black walnut. I believe actually it's called Eastern black walnut, but it's from Pennsylvania. Actually, it's from my backyard. No shortage of black walnut in Pennsylvania. It's a wonderful wood. Nothing grows near it except things that are grassy or have thorns. It has an inhibitor that it secretes from its roots that keeps other trees from growing nearby. It's how the black walnut expands and protects its own habitat. One of the original uses for black walnut wood in Pennsylvania, fence posts, because it is very, very resistant to weather. The heartwood is very resistant. The sapwood is very soft, but the heartwood is very resistant. A lot of people think that locust was the biggest one used for fence posts, and it's a great wood, but black walnut is actually something that's been used even longer. It's hard to believe such beautiful wood being used for fence posts, but when there's such abundance of it, it kind of takes some of the value out of it. So this was actually a piece of firewood originally. It came off the same piece I split out for the spurtle. I always start with the bowl of the spoon first, because if you mess up, you still have room to fix it. But if you already shaped it out and then you start to scoop it, you're in trouble. And I've done a lot of these, but I still occasionally slip. And the big thing is that I don't slip and catch my finger. Wood's cheap. Trips to the ER are both expensive and inconvenient.
You always go cross grain?
It carves better that way.
Carves better that way?
It does. You end up with a smoother finish. It doesn't catch. If you're pulling towards you, you're going to catch. Right. Whereas going cross grain, it cuts that nice and smooth. You can feel it. How are you? I know your face. That's it. So once this is, I get it to the size I want it and the depth, I'll take the hatchet after I catch the wood, and then I'll hew it down to a shape that is more conducive to being used in the kitchen. So you can see that's what we would do next. I'm going to carve away at this, but I wanted to show you that before we get too far along. There are misconceptions about black walnut. People think that it's a poisonous wood, and that's because they find out that it inhibits the growth of other plants nearby. The dust from black walnut is miserable to the eyes, and it does make you cough and your nose run, but it's not poisonous in any way. That's a misconception. Black walnut actually is a wonderful kitchen wood. I've actually been to a few different museums and seen pieces in kitchenware, spoons and spurtles, 200-300 years old, that were done originally in black walnut. So I've heard people say, "Oh, nobody used it for that." Yes, they did. It was an available wood. People used what was available wherever they were. Certain woods work better than others. We don't use poplar because it's too soft, and it also tastes like soap. It's because poplar has a chemical in it called saponin, which is what makes soap smell like soap. Also makes it foam up.